Hi everyone, welcome to Corn's Kitchen. For today's video, I'm going to share with you guys how I make the shortbread. The ingredients are very simple and it's easy to make. So, let's start making it.
For this recipe, the ingredients are 200 g of plain flour, 140 g of unsalted butter, 70 g of sugar, 10 g of cornstarch, and 2 g of salt. With this recipe, you will get approximately 24 shortbread of half an inch thick. To make the shortbread, simply weigh all the ingredients and put them into a large bowl. However, for the butter, you will also need to dice it into small cubes first. The smaller the butter cubes are, the better result you will get. Now, after all the ingredients are put into a bowl, mix the ingredients. Use the tip of your fingers to rub and combine the butter cubes with the flour mixture into a breadcrumb-like texture. Try to do it in mid-air so more air can be trapped between the crumbs. It can also prevent you from overworking the dough. When your fingertips get tired from the rubbing motion, you can also switch into this hand washing like motion. Continue to rub the butter cubes into the flour mixture until you have mostly fine crumbs like this. Now, gently press the fine crumbs together into a block of dough. You don't really need to knead them, just apply some pressure and the crumbs should start sticking together. After you have this block of dough, transfer it onto a sheet of baking paper. Now it's time to roll out the dough. You can use a rolling pin, but I prefer using my own palm to press out the dough. This way I can avoid making cracks in the dough, or even if there are cracks I can just fix them quickly. For the thickness, I also use my fingertips to measure. Basically, the top knuckles of your index finger should approximately be an inch, so you can just use the fingertip to measure the thickness of the dough like this. For me, this way is fairly accurate, but if you prefer, you can always use a ruler. For this video, I'm making the shortbread approximately half an inch thick. In my opinion, it is the best thickness for shortbread, but you can of course make it thinner or thicker. Now you can cut the dough with the biscuit cutter of your choice. For this video, I'm using a star-shaped one, and after I cut it out, I transfer it onto a baking tray that's already lined with a sheet of baking paper. You may need to use your finger to gently help push the cut out dough onto the baking tray. Do note that shortbread dough is crumbly, so if the dough falls apart in the process, just knead the crumbs back together to fix it. However, try to knead the dough as little as possible because you don't want the dough to develop too much gluten, which can ruin the distinctive crumbly texture of the shortbread. As you can see here, I'm trying to knead as little as possible, even when I'm trying to bring the dough back together for the second round of cutting the dough with the cutter. Now I'm left with some dough that is approximately one shortbread. Instead of cutting it into a star, I'm showing you how I make the shortbread into a simple circle using just my hands. In fact, if you don't want to use any biscuit cutter at all, you can just use this method for all of the shortbread dough. Now you have the shortbread shaped, and they need to be chilled in the freezer for at least 1 to 2 hours. Before you chill the shortbread, you can do an optional step of gently poking some holes in the shortbread with a fork. This helps cooking the shortbread more evenly so that there will be less spreading. However, I think the differences are not that big, and I think the shortbread looks better without the holes on top. In any case, I'm doing this optional step for one tray so that later you can compare the difference between the shortbread with holes on top and shortbread without the holes. Now, I'm putting the trays of shortbread into the freezer for at least 1 to 2 hours, and if you prefer, you can also put them overnight. After the shortbreads are chilled in the freezer, preheat the oven to 130 degrees Celsius with fan. If you're not using a fan oven, please refer to the description for the temperature conversion. After the oven is preheated, bake the shortbread for 30 minutes. Then turn the oven up to 160 degrees Celsius with fan and bake for another 10 to 15 minutes, well until the shortbread is light brown in color. After the shortbreads are baked, leave them to cool on the tray. Right now, they are very soft, so do not touch them. Shortbreads harden as they cool, so just let them cool on the tray until they are at room temperature. Now you have the shortbread. As you can see here, the shortbread with the holes spread slightly less, but as I said earlier, I think the difference is quite small and I prefer the one with the holes more. Now I'm going to break the shortbread so you can see how crumbly it is.
Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below and let me know what you think about this recipe and your experience of making it. Please also like and subscribe to this channel for more cooking or baking videos in the future. See you next time in Corn's Kitchen.